Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. We said last time that it was our Christmas special, and now we're recording one on Christmas Eve. Although, I don't know when it'll actually get released.
Because we're lying. We're liars.
We're liars.
The audience knows that we are liars.
Exactly. But yeah, this is kind of our second Christmas special, I guess. So with me today is Ed Mann, as you may as well already noticed. But yeah.
Sorry. Hi.
No, go on.
Hi. Hello. How you doing?
But we haven't got Fraser or Lou. We thought we'd just get a sneaky one in. And I know those guys are pretty busy over the Christmas period. So yeah. But we thought we'd have a little episode on a reflection of what we've done over the year, and also Ed had an exciting topic. Do you want to say what it is?
Did I have a exciting topic? I can't remember. Only joking. Can I just want you to say that this must be the first. You are using a mobile phone.
Yeah.
With Skype, I'm assuming, because obviously we're talking. And yeah, you recording through that. Well, not recording, but through that, and it sounds pretty good. The audio does. So
okay.
Yeah, it sounds great.
Yeah, I should explain. I mean, for people who listen, I've basically now moved in with my parents, which is fun, and so my MacBook is currently being used for the Christmas sale shopping by my wife.
Because she has the pants in this relationship.
She does indeed, and
like any good relationship. They have pants on. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh dear.
My iMac is boxed away.
Will you be taking out your iMac, or do you reckon that'll be in storage for the foreseeable future?
I am going to get it out.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Oh, because that's the thing, actually, isn't it? Because you're going to be working from home, or you're going to try and get in the office as much as possible to get away.
I'll probably be in the office.
Yeah,
pretty much every day. But yeah, I am going to unbox it at some point. So, but yeah, for today, on the phone.
On the phone, it sounds really good. And you're in bed after a nice night out with the Herm Bay lot.
That was regrettable.
Well, not them, but the...
Yeah, we were drinking ale. And I'm not really an ale drinker.
Did it agree with you, or...?
Not so much, no.
Oh, dear. So, are you a little bit kind of ropey today?
I'm not too bad, but yeah, I could be better. Yeah.
Could be better. Oh, dear. Yeah. There's me, wake up early in the morning, my first day off from, off work, and I'm just like, power through it, get as much done in the day as possible.
So how was the build up to time off over Christmas? Because it's usually quite stressful, isn't it? You've got to get stuff out.
Yeah, so it was weird actually, because we kind of well on our way with the Swift application, mobile application, and because that's not really an emphasis, because January for us is a big time of the year.
Right.
A lot of tradesmen come in at that time. We should be getting, and we are really heating up for that. Our customer service team we're building up that customer service team to be able to cater for the amount of tradesmen we're predicting to come through and stuff like that. So it's going to be a really, really, really busy time. And we, even if it seems like if it gets too busy, we may even be bitten on the phones. So the development team may be on the phone. So I may actually have to be trying to talk to people, offering them food. Obviously, is what I do. Over the phone, it'd be interesting. I'm like, I'll send that out to you, that lovely lobster. So we'll see how that goes. But so it's been okay. I mean, we kind of toned down on the app, and we haven't done that for about a month now. And it was a lot of where we've got Jeff, who's our kind of like project manager, kind of like he liaises with what projects we need to get on with and stuff, and how prioritize what we actually need to get done. Yeah. And he was talking a lot to the customer service team and working with them throughout a couple of days, almost a week, being able to actually get a feel for how they use the system, the admin back end, and things that we could tweak to make things more effective and stuff like that. So really interesting insight into how they use the system. Yeah. So then brought that back to us, and then we've been able to kind of work on these couple of tweaks and everything to get them done. It's funny how some of the simplest things that you can do will make the biggest difference. Like adding a button or changing the color of a button. Will just make things so much easier, and how the user how they will use it will change as well. And it's very interesting. It's probably the first time I've ever actually, and this is what the topic of the day actually is handling a product and having so much more insight into the product than whereas like in agency work where you're kind of shipping code out, getting a product, doing it, and then leaving it. This is kind of like something you kind of look after. And morphs and changes over the years and stuff, and you become more kind of with the product, and like you're the domain expert in the product and everything. So yeah, it's been very interesting. How about yourself, sir?
You know what? I've kind of been planning for the last month kind of what I wanted to get done before breaking up for Christmas, and that's actually gone pretty well, actually. We've kind of stuck to our deadlines and stuff. So, I mean, for me personally, yeah, everything was quite neatly wrapped up. So, yeah, quite lucky in that respect, really. But it's really cool that, like you were saying, that, you know, you guys go into that amount of detail. Like,
I think this is the funny thing, is that actually that detail is needed to kind of, get the most out of the product.
Yeah.
When we're building systems ourselves and everything, I think as developers, it's very hard for us to... I'm one of the developers who I like nice, clean-looking code. And I won't mind talking today about clean code and stuff like that, and you know, making code that's manageable, maintainable, and understandable to people who will use it next. But actually the system as a whole, you know, things to do with the UI, how they're positioned, how things are placed, how information's placed. Thinking of things such as like, so we had like in a case of a list, one of the things was references, and references now what happens is any tradesman can post as many references as they want. And only 2 then get approved. That was a change, whereas before it was like you only could have 2, you could only post 2 references. Now we're expecting a lot of people to post multiple references, maybe 4 or 5, whereas we were normally expecting them only to have about 3 in this list. And we had some vital information at the bottom of this list. But when we started thinking about it, we thought, hang on a minute, this list is going to grow. And people, we looked at what size screens, because we have some remote people and they use smaller screens. And we're thinking, actually, this information is going to get hidden outside of the browser view if you're just going to that page. And well, actually, we need to start rethinking this and moving it around and look at that and stuff. So it's really interesting. The smallest details that change for us, it's thinking, the back end stuff, how that changes. But actually, it's like, well, actually, this visual change now needs to happen because it's going to cause a knock-on effect to how they actually use the system.
Yeah, it's really interesting because obviously I know, like, you've done agency work with me. You lucky man. And
the best time of my life.
But I mean, how many times have you heard someone say, the client wants this. It's a stupid idea, but you know what? It's what the client wants, so we need to do it. With you, because it's your product, well, not your product, but the company's product, it's like you don't have that. It's like you probably still have people in the company who want to do something. You might not agree with it, but at the end of the day, you've got someone who's qualified in that field who can make a pretty good decision.
That is, that is so true. I mean, we have shareholders and stuff, and I think they have an input, but a lot of it is to do with internally what we feel, what the boss feels is the way to go. Yeah. I love product work. I do think that for me personally is it really, whether it's a product that you're working for or a product that you are going to build yourself, I think it's the best way to go because you're going to be far more invested in it. And as a programmer as well, it opens. I've never, as I say, we did agency work. It's a completely different mindset you have when you start. And it's interesting, me and a guy I work with, Kavan, we were talking about this, and it's the fact that, you know, like building software, his brother, you know, I don't know if he minds telling this, but like his brother, he's saying that his brother's a very good programmer, but he only works with it for himself. And he's the only one who does works on that code. So he's the only one who sees that code. In a team aspect, you have to change your mindset because this code that you're writing, even though you may understand it at this moment in time, even, who's to say someone down the line will understand it? And is it tested correctly? Will you know, things that will I be able to think, okay, is it easily for me to be able to, you know, expand on this, extract it out, you know, break it up into smaller problems if I need to eventually. And then there's like also like kind of, there's no silver bullet because when you abstract with OO, when what you're doing is you're building domains, really. You're building these small area, like fixated domains of, okay, this is an abstraction or at the level that I need. And encapsulate all the logic that you need into that abstraction. You know, I think one thing I got confused with OO was I thought it was people say it's modeling the real world, right? And it's not actually, because it's modeling the world that you're in for that domain.
That's correct.
It's modeling the problem that you're in. You know, I may have a shopping system And this, I think, is where domain-driven design comes in. I may have, like, say, a shopping system. Oh, no, wait, a shopping center or something. And I may be modeling one area of the shopping center in a certain way and another one in a different way. You're not going to model them the same way. You're not going to abstract them out and make these abstractions in the same way. I don't know if I'm explaining that at all, kind of. But
I'm with you.
For me, it's not modeling the real world. It's modeling the problem you're trying to solve. And and trying to give insight to the user, to the person who's going to look at the code next, and yourself, self-documenting almost the problem that you were solving.
Yeah.
And that's where I found out the real beauty of object-oriented programming, polymorphism, etc., etc. So it's been a real eye-opener, that kind of thing.
So one question I've never actually asked you, or maybe I have and I wasn't listening, but you know what I'm like. But what is your actual workflow like? Literally from the idea pops up in a shareholder's head to actually getting that out and shipping it. What is the workflow in between those two things?
So we get the idea, and we get that through a couple of means. We either get it through shareholders, maybe the boss, maybe Jeff brought it up, and we get also service team people have cards. We write a card for things, and we put it on the whiteboard.
Right.
And what then happens is they prioritize what needs to be done next.
That's very agile, isn't it?
Very agile. Working out, okay, these are the things we need to do.
Yeah.
And then what happens then is we get tasked in checking what we're going to get done. We work on specific project, and we have a couple of teams, and we have like our own little magnets with the different colors. So our own colored magnets, and we say, okay, well, I'm going to be working on this today, and we break up we normally at the beginning of a project, I keep getting those two words mixed up. Beginning of a project, what we normally do is we have like one base card saying this is the problem, and then we break it up into smaller problems. And, we keep breaking it up into the problems that we need, such as, down to just getting, what we need to get done and what we can get done in manageable chunks. And then we say, okay, what I'm going to be doing today. So we've got like work in progress, tasks that we need to get done. And then we've got the to do today. So we've got stuff we'll do today, done, and done yesterday. And what the idea then is that we'll do today. So I put that, I say, okay, I'm going to get on with these two things today. And the nice thing about checking is it also allows you to work with people. So you may be, liaising with a couple of people on that project throughout, because it's there handling the project as well. But also it allows you to talk to other people who aren't on the project at that time.
Yeah.
And then maybe they can help you out. Maybe they can say, actually, I can help you out with that. Or you can ask questions and stuff like that. So they just know. It's nice because it's not like what we used to have where you have task manager, where you put in how much time you did it and stuff like that. It's nothing to do with that. It's about breaking up the problem and working on the problem. However long it takes, it's going to take. You're going to work on it as hard as you can, and you're just going to solve it. It's not about, okay, it took me this long to do this. It's not a history kind of thing about what happened. It's more about kind of an active, this is what I'm doing, this is what I did yesterday and stuff like that, to kind of make sure that we're getting progress, making sure that we're actually, things are having problems and stuff. So once it's in, we'll do, and then we're going to be doing it. Then the idea of, and then in a project, what we do is we used to use, before I worked there, they started using the Git flow model, but actually they felt that it wasn't what they wanted to do. So what they do is we have this idea of pull request model, really, where we create a branch. That's the beauty of Git. You create a branch that's your project master branch that then make a pull request for, with a description of what you're going to be solving for that whole project.
Yeah.
And then maybe that then gets broken up into different pull requests that are then merged into that branch, then eventually merged into master. And the nice thing between that is, then with pull requests and stuff, is that people can comment on your code. They can, review your code, review changes. And normally what we do before we merge it in fully is everyone's had a look at the code, and we've had a discussion, maybe even go into the meeting room and, review the code, discuss what the problem was, especially if it's a big project. That works really well with kind of medium-sized projects, small, medium, because you can break away, and because you've just got to keep remembering to rebase with master to make sure your changes, work with the latest build. Yeah. But I found that you can be kind of, with some project, with breaking them up into different branches and then kind of going off in your own world, it makes it a pain to actually merge back into master, especially with conflicts, but also just kind of keeping keeping it. So I've been working on this for a couple of weeks, and no one's seen anything to do with it. There's actually I can't remember what it's called actually, but it was like feature switching or something. And you can actually, the idea that what you can do is you can actually switch on features, like in master, there's like special ways. So you could actually be working in master with other people, but then people can just say, oh yeah, this person gets to see the new feature.
Right.
And then they can go down the alley. So instead of having a completely different branch that you work on. So I thought that was quite an interesting way. And I've been reading up on that. We may be thinking about that, but I'm not quite sure if we will do that. But really, at the moment, yes, it's a pull request model. You comment on the code, you merge it in. We then deploy it, and Jenkins. Obviously, we then run Jenkins builds on it. Normally, what you do is you set up. We all have our own Jenkins build, like profile, and then we all set up it. Saying, okay, I'm working on this now. I'll put this as the branch, and whenever I do a push to that branch, it will then run the test suite over it. It takes about 10-15 minutes now. Which is good. So yeah, and it works really well. It's the best model I've ever had.
It sounds pretty perfect, actually.
I mean, it works really well because being in a product again, because you're able to get the workflow down. You can't. I mean, could you do this for a small project? Let's say you've got a CMS CMS system that you need to build for a small client. Now, this kind of workflow of it may not be. The amount of work that I put into, say, a small feature will probably be the whole build of a CMS system. So it kind of goes into, that's where I kind of now have gone from, I don't want to do agency work per se that way, just churning out code. And I can see the value and understand the value in, building quick systems and stuff like that. And tools such as Laravel and stuff that can be used. And I know it can be used bigger and stuff. I understand that. But, these tools that are rapidly build systems and stuff are very good at what they do. But building a product and stuff, you get more of a workflow and you get more invested in it.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a nicer way to go. I mean, I guess I'm sort of somewhere in the middle. I mean, I'm working for an agency, but predominantly my work is on our content management system, which is a ever-changing animal, really, and obviously we're always adding different modules to it and all that kind of stuff, so that takes up most of my time. But I guess for me, one of the downsides that we've not discussed is you can kind of get bored of working on the same products.
Yes, I could understand what you say there. And funnily enough, I haven't, and I can't see it. It's funny that because it changes, the problem changes. The way you solve problem, I think that's a nice thing where I work is we're able to solve things in different ways when we feel we need to. That the new things come up so we can actually use them. It's not the same old way of doing things. Also, people's problems do change, and you find problems in problems. It's very much kind of, even though you're in this little microcosm of one project or one product now, the amount of dealing with all these problems, internally inside of that, when it becomes big, actually is quite interesting. I mean, for me, I prefer having these fine-grained problems in a product than I do getting the problem of, I get to build someone's a website now. I think I enjoy that more, but I think that maybe just because of taste, because I know that Lou loves building websites and likes dealing with the whole problem from like being able to do the back end stuff, do the front end stuff, and do the design, etc., and all that, and he enjoys that a lot, and I respect him for that, because I personally, for me, I only feel I can concentrate on one thing.
I completely agree. I think you're absolutely right. I guess the other thing for me, though, would be you say to me that you like to, format your Mac every, few months, right? Every 6 months, because you like that feeling of stripping back to the basics and clearing out any junk that's on the system. I guess with a product base, code base, you're going to have code that's been there for years, probably code that's been put in there by developers who've left. You've got their code base to deal with. You're probably, unless you've got the most amazing workflow system in the world, which sounds like you have actually, but it's going to be hard to think, whoa, is that code being used? Do we need to take that out? Do we need to improve it? And if you're doing new sites all the time, you've got that fresh start every time. Do you know what I mean?
That's
It's
it.
like
You have the ability to use a product, like say, oh, cool, I'll get to use Node.js for this project because and it doesn't matter because I'll whip it up, I'll release it, and I never have to think about it again. Well, now if you say Node.js in like a product, then you're going to hold that for years and years and years, and and I like it because it's a different problem I've had to deal with. You know, there are bits of the product that aren't good. You know, nowadays, you know, the fact that we use, the fact like active records. So active records, you know, the pattern is very, very good for smaller sites, quick builds, because it's very expressive in that, and stuff like Eloquent and stuff like Propel and stuff like that. But it doesn't lend itself to big systems where you're trying to decouple things, because really you're tying the persistence layer with the actual domain, which is your project, you know, which it's like, say, products or users, etc. Things like the data mapper model, though, like Doctrine use, is good, but this system we currently have is using Propel, because that's what it was built with years and years ago. But you work your way around it, kind of.
changing that now.
Trying to change it, but also you work your way around it, the fact that, okay, well, this is what you have to deal with, this is the problem we have. And that's why I love it, because you find problems in problems.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and that then lends itself actually to, I never really understood, you know, like TDD, and I never really understood Martin Fowler's work and Uncle Bob's work, Bob Martin's, and then now I'm reading it, and I'm now understanding and appreciating it, because things like the step down rule, things like, you know, if you have extracting out functions just because functions are better comments than comments themselves, and redundant comments are a pain in the bum and pointless, just if you're using it just for, like, you know, documentation tools, but people are just going to read the code, and things like good tests, valuable tests, not just mocking everything. Fragile tests are worse than not having a test at all, because then what you're doing is change. You know, when you tweak one thing, it breaks the test. I've recently written a blog post for the My Builder tech blog, my first 3 months at My Builder, and there was and I think I spoke about it on the podcast actually, as a really good, like, you know, TDD, where did it all go wrong? And I think it was Ian, I can't remember his name, but it's Ian something. Sorry, I forgot his name. I'll put it in the show notes. But, you know, he was explaining how, you know, we didn't intend unit tests to just be one unit, you know, a segregated one class. It was a unit in the fact of the domain itself, the problem itself, where, you know, it has it interacts with a couple of pieces and stuff, and you're testing the boundaries, not just you know, maybe you will test like this one integral bit, the algorithm or something. But you're testing these boundaries, not just each individual bit in isolation and having to mock everything, because you do see tests which are like just mocking the whole, you know, world, and you're just, hang on a minute, all you're doing now is testing the mock works. And it's great you can test the mocking framework, but you hope that the mocking framework's already got testing itself. So really interesting. Like, that's one thing I've learned, is valuable tests, not testing for testing's sake, but valuable tests and valuable comments, not commenting just everywhere and thinking, how can I express this? You know, naming things. Oh my days, naming things is one of the hardest jobs to do, and one of the most valuable jobs. One of the valuable things as programmers sorely don't do well.
Well, it's easy to name something, but to name it in like something that isn't more than 2,000 characters is more difficult, I guess.
That's it. Trying to break it down into maybe a couple of words.
Yeah.
And finding the perfect words that solve it for that, you know, the problem you're trying to solve. That's it. It's very, very interesting. I mean, and it's funny how we actually, you know, spend some time, like sometimes people in code reviews, and they will look at a class or something, and they'll be like, well, what is this doing? And you explain it to them, and they're like, oh, okay, I understand that now. And then you'll spend maybe 5 minutes trying to think of a better name for it, and then you're like, actually, that's a better name. And then you go to someone else who hasn't done it, who hasn't looked at the class yet, and you say, what does this do? And you realise now it's a better name because they understood it exactly, you know, completely, you know, off bat. So it's amazing, again, that a name can change everything. And do you put any of that information like in like your method signatures and that kind of stuff, little comments at the top? I mean, I'm with you now. Like, I don't like. I do. Redundant comments are pointless, but I think the thing I like is I say comments, only use them when people say you failed if you have to use a comment, but I don't believe in that. I think, like, you want to make your methods, you want to abstract logic out. So say like you've got a method. And you've got a couple of chunks in that method, and maybe you'll comment in that method, like this does this, this does this, this. Why not just abstract that out into 3 private methods that have their own good name, and then people can read it, and they can understand exactly what's going on instead of having these comments. And that method's obviously doing too much. These need to be split up. Even the single responsibility principle, stands for those methods. So that adds self-documentation, documenting methods themselves. So
I guess the other thing from that argument is, say you've got those 3 things that are being done in one method. Actually, then when someone goes to write a new method, and say then they need something that's already being done in one of your other methods, but they don't know about it because it's hidden in there. But if you then take them out and you've now got this new method, which is, I don't know, get username or something, then that's so nice, isn't it?
Absolutely.
When you add functionality and you're like, oh, I need this, and you're like, oh, someone's already done it, and you just use something that someone else has already done.
Absolutely. I mean, processing power is cheap. It doesn't matter that you've made another method. It really doesn't.
No.
That's another thing I've realized. Like I love performance and stuff like that, but actually, the bottleneck is the developer understanding the code. That's the bottleneck. You're better off in a slower system. And these are the things like domain-driven design that kind of do make you abstract more and, make a system a bit more slower, but, in the sense that you're not performant, like C-style code.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, if the developer understands it and picks it up easier, that is the best thing.
Yeah. By the way, you like that little that photo I sent you in that computer magazine?
Oh, what? Yeah. So what was that then? You need to give the audience a bit of context for that. That was interesting.
So my dad basically found a magazine in a loft, and it was like a teach yourself programming magazine from I think it was like the 70s or something, and it was pretty spectacular, some of the stuff in there. But one of it was looking at BASIC, and I've never looked at BASIC before, but actually, you look at these things now and you think not much has actually changed. At a basic, I've got to stop using the word basic in the wrong context, but the
basically,
I'm talking about the language BASIC, and you look at the syntax. It's still pretty much kind of like if this then that type syntax. You know what I mean? It's not much has changed really, I guess. But when you really strip it down, it was pretty crazy to look at some of the computers that were being advertised in there, and one of them, I can't remember how much RAM was it? It was advertising. It was kilobytes of RAM.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, I hope you've kept that magazine. That is a keeper.
Yeah.
For little Toby,
absolutely.
when he gets older and becomes a computer genius.
Yeah.
You'll be able to give it to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
sorry, I completely sidetracked.
No. Well, actually, because I kind of was just thinking about what other things I could actually speak about, and one of the other ones was I think I'm a very defensive programmer, so you get defensive programming, always checking things before you use them and stuff like that, but also on the boundaries themselves, such as say, so I've got a post method. So I have a couple of methods that are only accessible by you post to them, and you post in it updates, or you post, and then, I don't know, logs something or something like that. But these are methods that should only be used if intentionally by, say a form that you've submitted it from, and I typically, what I normally do then is, okay, so if you accidentally go to this link where you post it and you haven't provided a valid URL, valid application ID or something like that, I'll then do a nice flash message and redirect you, to saying, sorry, you don't have access to this route or something. And that actually is adding unnecessary logic, because if someone does maliciously try and do that, I don't care what I don't care. I'm just going to give you a blank screen. I'll just throw an exception, and then my computer, my application will handle it with a blank screen. It won't need. You shouldn't give them, nice methods and stuff. If the good case, of them using it doesn't entail them actually, accessing that link that way, then you shouldn't program for that. You shouldn't cater for the people doing it in a bad way. And it was very interesting, because I used to be very much kind of add it in, but actually that's unnecessary logic that you don't need.
That's controversial. That's very controversial.
Well, I don't know if it is, because it's just okay, so in that case, what I'll do is I'll throw the exception, and then, my Symfony will then handle that with a blanket, production exception thing, and I'll log it in my database. and they won't get any nice fancy redirection or anything because they should never have accessed that link that way anyway.
And then you look at that database, right? And you look at it every day to see what's gone wrong.
And you could see him be like, "Oh, you kind of access this like this, you numpty." Like people have obviously. So it's interesting, like not being nice really to these people who are trying to maliciously use your program.
Yeah.
And another thing was, it's kind of like this is kind of like the Schema thing, like Little Book of Schema, which is the thing I'm starting to read, which is really interesting. But so like having one level if statements. Just if this, then do that. If this, then do that. Not if else, and then ifs and ifs and ifs. Having these simple kind of, so what one way of doing it is say like keeping it as clean and as simple as possible, because like say you have like a get status method, and you could do like if this, then maybe you'll have like like a state output equals and then a blank string. Then you either do a switch statement where you assign that, or you'll do like an if block, if else block, which you assign it then, and then you return at the end.
Yeah.
The nice way of doing actually, and the more readable way, is to just say, okay, without having all this state and stuff, just doing if, status this, return that, and then having an if this, return that, and people can easily, I find I can read that easier than doing this assignment and then a return at the end. It's a really small, trying to explain it in a way like cutting out quicker, cutting out short, like say like, okay, returning instead of just assigning a value to then return at the end.
See, my lecturer, he preached the exact opposite of that.
Really?
Yeah, because when it comes to debugging, actually, you know what, if you can just then go to the end of your method and to say, I don't know, whatever you want to do, var dump, print r, on whatever you're going to return, it's actually a lot easier than trying to find out where you are in the if loop, what's happening.
But then I would say then that the block that he's doing stuff in is too complex.
Really?
And he probably should extract that out again. That's where I go. Like, method should only be about, in my mind, like 10 lines long.
Yeah, I think to be fair, in his example, he was saying, you know what, if you do that, and then someone comes in and changes your method, and then they put in an else if statement, and then they put in another return, so you could end up with a method with like 3 return statements.
Skipping
and
out,
it's like,
that's it. That is it. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. Like, if there's a weird logic for you skipping out, like return if you do that, return if you do that, and people can't see it in the code. But if it's if it's a small bit, say like 10 lines of code, and you can read it in that, have it on your screen all at once.
Yeah.
I kind of go by that, and this is what I love now about these kind of principles. Is very much kind of taste and experience and how you feel. And that's where I've kind of like gone. I've tried my best to write some blog posts, but I find it very hard to express this type of stuff than I do just like a simple computing algorithm or something. Because taste in programming and how you do it is dependent on so many factors. Coding styles, experience you've had working with people, what do people like, that people will want this method here, how they want that, what you want now, your taste at this time because last week you preferred it that way. I've read this cool blog post, so I'm going to do it this way now, and then I turn out a week later I don't like that way that I was doing that blog post because there was a contradicting blog post that I'm now reading. And things like that. So it's this kind of more thought pattern, more design, more architectural style thing are so different. I think another thing is like a couple of the way that we kind of work now. So one of the things that Uncle Bob does is abstracting things out into interactors or use cases, and having use cases that are these pretty much simple classes that just do one thing. And you could pass them in the stuff. So say like you have a use case that will edit the user and or update the user, or no, say like that it will generate the user's username. So it needs the user repository to get the user out, and then it will have like say a user generator. So you pass those dependencies in, you execute it. What you do is you pass in the ID. The ID will then get the user from that user repository. It will then use the username generator that we've passed in to generate the username, and then it will persist it, store it into the repository. It will use a finder, to get the user. It will then store it into the repository, and it will do that one thing and do it well. You can then maybe have your what will happen is you'll have your delivery mechanism, which will be, say, like for this case, that could be very abstract. So that could be in the domain. It doesn't matter. It's not implementation specific. It's not, Symfony specific or anything like that. It can be used like with a command line. It can be used with any other system. Then you have your delivery mechanism, which in our case would be, say, Symfony, and it would be a controller method. And what you do then is you then use this interactor, this use case, inside of a controller, of a controller method. This logic could have been in that controller method, but you're abstracting it out because having logic in controller methods is a deadly sin. One thing I was very lucky with is I wasn't there when they moved from Symfony 1 to Symfony 2.
Right.
And they now value the pain that you have if you're trying to move from a framework to another framework.
Yeah.
And the logic most of their logic was luckily in Propel models. So Propel you're able to bring out, which, isn't the greatest, but some of their logic was in controllers. And you lost that logic because once you move to another, you're using a different controller system, and stuff like that. All that logic's gone. Yeah. You want to make your delivery system as simple as possible so you can change it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
I remember I was very much a fat controller guy. And a fat model guy then as well. And I did it all wrong because I broke it, not this time last year, probably when I was working on that big project. I was using Laravel and Eloquent and the active record pattern. And it gets you into a couple of bad habits where you're like, well, where do I put this logic? And then you make these GOG classes. Yeah. They just look horrible. And, breaking it up and properly like abstracting things out now using data mapping and stuff like that, things are much better. So I would recommend, like, there's this good article that I read, which was like the 10 books you should read in the Java world. Right. Very much kind of, go inside with PHP really, because just architectural books, a lot of them were. So like Clean Coders, architectural patterns. There's a Martin Fowler book, refactoring. Martin Fowler book, very valuable, very good. And what I do is I put them in the show notes, and I highly recommend if you want to just kind of start thinking about different things and different ways of doing things, and refactoring code, because the idea is we don't all work on greenfield projects. We all, a lot of us work on brownfield projects, and there's nothing wrong with working on a brownfield project. You can get your system under test, and you can do things the right way. You're going to get areas of the system which aren't going to look nice and aren't going to be perfect, but you are going to get your little areas that are perfect, in the world that you are living in, that are perfect. And I think that's kind of what for me for testing is that you're testing these areas in isolation, and this is perfect in this way, and then you can join them together, and it's all about breaking up these problems into separate problems with boundaries. They call it like I think it's the adapters, plugs and adapters. I think it is like and having this idea of hexagonal architecture where you have these systems that are separated from each other, and then they interact with base interfaces and stuff like that and APIs, and it's really cool.
Sounds good. Yeah. So the other thing we were going to talk about today, as well as product versus agency type work, was our look back at both our years, really. So how do you think you've changed as a programmer this year? Wow. Yours is going to be a lot to do with the BDD, I guess. DDD, domain driven design.
I mean, I've touched on that a lot this year. Still complete, finding my feet with it, very much so. For me, I've changed a lot in that I think I've become more of a pragmatic programmer, which is a buzzword, meaning, you've got to get things done. You have to ship things. And it's balancing that between perfection, which is what we love doing. We want to be perfect. We want to make the perfect system.
But you can never get it shipped.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And also, there is no such thing as the best abstraction or the best design, because that works now, but when someone changes the design, and says, oh, we want this now, your abstraction could have been crap. Like, it would have not worked, or, that you'll have to, so it's making systems that are able to be changed. And the way you do, and there was another Greg Young, I forgot to put that in the show notes this last week with a podcast we did, about, deletable code. You should be able to destroy your code. Best code you can write is something you can delete and rewrite in about an hour or two.
That's interesting. Okay.
Because you're breaking up problems into smaller problems. And I think another thing this year I've kind of seen... I've been able, through the job, and working in a product, has been able to see more of an architectural software problems than just, oh, this is a cool framework, or this is a cool library, or this is a cool algorithm.
Yeah.
I really love doing those things still. And like yesterday I was playing around with the radix trees and stuff like that, and I really enjoy doing that. But I also value and like the work that Martin Fowler and Uncle Bob and all these people in other languages, Java language, language and stuff like that, and C# and everything, who have put in and on big systems.
Yeah.
And enjoy it. I mean, I never thought I would enjoy that kind of corporate kind of work, but actually it is enjoyable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's been me kind of, working on that, and also really kind of working with Git more so, and I'm now truly understanding Git, how it works internally, and how you can collaborate with people and stuff like that, and not being scared of it.
Now you look back, do you think like you only knew a little bit of Git, or did you feel before like you knew Git pretty well?
And I thought I knew it well enough to get around.
Yeah.
But now it's like being able to actually properly use it. Only yesterday though, I learned about fix-ups, which are, so typically what we do is, we have these project branches and stuff, and we'll write very specific commits. That's one thing I've learned now, is write specific commits, with one thing maybe you've changed. Don't group commits. Don't group changes into commits saying done stuff. Yeah. Awful. Because if you, what I do is I do like break up these commits and everything, and I do use a GUI for that. I love using Tower for that because it's so nice being able to easily see what's going on, and also staging lines, so staging this chunk of text and this chunk of text in a file as a commit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you'll do that. And work that me and Cavan do, we normally get up to about 100, 150 commits. A lot of the medium projects we do.
Wow.
We both sit down together and we rebase it. And rebase it is we change the history. We literally squash commits together. We literally say, okay, these chunk of work can be done can be said to be done together. Yeah. And we then get rid of all the history that we don't need into nice logical commits that make sense, that we can then push into master, and it looks like we've done it perfectly.
That's really nice.
And that's the way to go. Like, you can be commit happy with Git, and it doesn't matter. You can rebase it afterwards, and that's another thing. Rebase it afterwards with you both together. Don't do what I've done a couple of times, which is rebasing and changing the history, and then someone's trying to push up, and then you realise, we're gonna have to cherry pick these commits you've just done onto another branch because I kind of rewrote your history with shards. And so it's been an interesting year with Git. But I love it, and it really is such a simple idea, and I am in the process of writing that Git blog post still, which is the internals of commit Git and how you can use it, like the underlining methods, like functions and actions that they have to actually create a Git repository without actually using the high level methods, which is quite cool.
Well, I personally like you to come around and give me some Git lessons at some point.
A true Git lesson. That'd be awesome, man. I'm well up for that. Yeah. We could, it'd be a good laugh because, you will get it easily. It is a very easy system to understand.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like safe, when you feel safe in it, because there's been some times when I've rewrote history and I'm like, sugar, I've just lost some work I did. But it's not all gone because you can reflog the system, work out what you did and go back because it's still in your Git. It's immutable. That's a bit of the thing about this functional DAG they use, this, the key value story is that it is immutable. It doesn't change anything from the past. It only adds on to it. So you may, if you do a garbage collection or clean GC, which is just cleaning up the dead objects in the object store inside of the Git repository, then you will lose your work. But it's very hard to lose work in Git forever.
That's the beauty of it, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, locally you can easily get them back. And there's been a couple of times I'm like, Cavan, what have I done? And that's been a nice thing about this year actually, has been able to kind of have people to kind of go, I don't know what I'm doing, and getting help. So that's been my year in retrospective. How about you, sir?
Good question. I guess the thing that really stands out for me is a better understanding of Linux and all that kind of stuff that we've kind of done in conjunction with computer security. And before I could work my way around, but I was very guilty of a lot of the time doing sort of copy and paste commands, go on Google. Whereas now it was really cool to obviously have a play around with installing Apache from source, installing PHP and all that kind of stuff that I've never, like I say, I've done it before, but I didn't really understand what was going on. So
not using package managers and actually using Makefile. Yeah, you really appreciate that this is how the software is actually made, and there is no voodoo to it. It's C files that get compiled onto your system and moved around.
Exactly, yeah, that's it. So, that's been really cool. I'm really, really happy with that. What else have I learned? I'm sure I have, but in terms of my programming style, I guess I've suffered a little bit certainly with my PHP and everything. I haven't progressed this year because it's not been my main focus.
But then that's I kind of, you say PHP, but then you've been doing a lot of Java stuff, which comes back to PHP, really.
Well, that's a weird thing. I mean, this term I haven't really done much programming, which has been strange, right, for a computer science degree. But a
lot more theory, a lot more
more theory
behind it.
Yeah, exactly. So I haven't really done an awful lot of programming, but obviously next year I'm going to be doing computer graphics and animation, and there'll be a lot of there's a lot of Java there.
Oh, it's Java. OpenGL and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at compression algorithms, that kind of stuff. So it'd be good to get back into that. I'm really looking forward to that one, to be honest. But otherwise, I guess, when I look back now, I started the year with concurrency and parallelism. That was really interesting, and certainly, I mean, for me, that was mainly in Java, and it's actually, there's a lot of pitfalls there, but it's really, really fun area to play around with. So that was really cool, and obviously I had intelligent systems, and looking at pathfinding algorithms, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, A-star and all that cool fun.
Yeah, which at the time was giving me a real headache. But it was really good, and I've said it many times on this podcast before, but I definitely feel like I've had stages in my career, or certainly in my learning with programming, in the sense that my first step was to really understand how you make things work, like the language, all the kind of vanilla stuff. But then since then, it's kind of been like, well, okay, now I can do this. How do I do it well? How do I actually tidy it up and make it nice and make it readable? All the kind of craftsmanship things that you've been talking about. So, I mean, doing this Masters has helped me to make that next step, I think. And I certainly think about things a lot more now. And like I say, design patterns, all that kind of thing is really kind of been the thing that's really floated my boat this year, I guess. And, I mean, from a work perspective, the biggest thing that I've worked on and helped change was the dependency injection code, and that was really good.
Have you seen a lot of benefit with using DI?
Yeah, definitely. Because we've got we haven't got an ideal workflow, but we've got different flavors of our CMS, and I had to start working on an older version the other day, which didn't have the dependency injection code, and that was horrible. And it's only when you look back sometimes you realize how far you've come and how much better your changes have been. So I haven't actually kind of benchmarked it to see what the speed improvements are. It would be interesting to do that, but certainly from readability and the ease at which you can write new code now, it's so much better. So that's been really cool. But like I say, I definitely want to continue with that and look at more design pattern based stuff and that kind of stuff.
The funny thing with design patterns is, I think we go through a phase you learn design patterns and then you want to use them everywhere. And you're like, I'm going to use a factory here, I'm going to use the strategy pattern here, and I'm going to use the flyweight pattern here and stuff like that. But then what you start realizing actually is you come to these patterns on your own anyway. You start building up code, and then you're like, actually, this is starting to look like that. And then you'll use the names these design patterns to again tell other programmers what you're trying to do, and you're solving it in this way.
Yeah.
And again, it's not to reinvent the wheel. It's to express, and it's not like an off the shelf kind of implementation, but it's to express intent to another developer.
Yeah.
About what you were trying to do.
I think a lot of these things even if you don't end up using them, they're good just to learn and just to understand.
Absolutely. Any language, anything is. I mean, one question I might ask is, what do you want to learn next year? What is your goal for next year? What would you like to say the next year you've kind of achieved?
Next year, okay, that's a really good question, because I have to really concentrate on my uni work. Yep. So
well, it could be uni-based. I mean, this is the thing. Are you going to be doing your dissertation next year?
Yeah, I'm going to be doing my project.
That'd be awesome. Now that's going to be fun. That is going to be an in-depth kind of. That is actually a product. You'll be creating a product out of that, really.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. I really kind of want to take everything I've learned and forget it, and
never use it in that practice. And that's uni, everyone. No, joking.
But at the moment, my kind of thinking is, I want to do something with concurrency, because that's really cool. And I also want to do something with maybe something to do with like pathfinding algorithms, and take those two things and do something. I'm not sure what yet, to be honest with you. I need to have a real sit down, have a good think about it. But something with AI as well. Basically, I'm just going to take everything. And
I thought the idea of rock, paper, scissors sounded pretty awesome.
Well, that's in my mind, actually. I really did like that
probability
idea
of being able to say,
Yeah, that'd be really, really cool. So, we'll see. But as soon as I know, I will tell you.
That'll be interesting. Look forward to we can see the progression on the podcast of how you do it throughout the year.
That's it. But how about you? What's on your checklist?
On my bucket list next year is probably learning a Lisp dialect like Clojure.
Really?
People at work are doing it, and it's cool, and it's awesome, and it's really interesting. And I really want to learn a Lisp dialect and use it, even in my own time, just be able to use it. Also, combined with that, that's more of a geeky thing. I want to do an architectural kind of things as well. I want to learn domain-driven design more, kind of get more into that, and more of kind of like the software craftsmanship, if you can quotes, style things, which would be cool. So those two things are really my kind of things I want to get on with and do. I think that's the beautiful thing, like, with programming, there's always an area you can look into and kind of, enjoy and stuff like that, and pick up a book in and start reading, or pick up a podcast and start listening to and stuff like that. So it's very valuable. Like, I don't know actually if I told you this, like last week, I don't know if I told in the podcast, like, I've got, we've obviously got internet in our lovely house now, because I moved out this year, which has been a crazy year. Finally got internet after 2 months, which has been hell for all three of us. I'm living with two of my best mates who are they're computer guys
scoundrels.
like us. They're scoundrels.
Right.
They're computer guys like us. They're scoundrels. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And they're gamers, so they're online games, so they love their games, etc.
Yeah.
I get bored of games so easily. I try and enjoy a game, but I'm like, I just want to program now. And so they haven't been able to do that. And now obviously we've got the internet, so they've been just playing on their games all the time. I've been coding, and it's been amazing. But it's last week or the week before. So I built my first computer I've done in like a couple of years. So one of my friends wanted a computer built. Yeah. And tell me to stop if I've actually already explained this on the pod, because I don't know if I have. But I bought obviously a nice shiny MacBook Pro. i7 2.2 gigahertz. Quad core processor, 16 gig of RAM, and SSD 256 gigabyte SSD. Love it. Retina display, beautiful. Only in Intel graphics, internal. But then I'm speccing up for my friend's computer. Yeah. And for about $1,000, I built him so he's got a lovely case. It's got a MSI Game 7. It was a really nice motherboard. He's got a 3.6 gigahertz i7 quad core processor. That's 3.6 gigahertz. 16 gig of RAM, but he can upgrade that easily to 32 if he wants. He's got the best on the market £300 graphics card, NVIDIA GTX ridiculous thing that is just insane beast. Yeah. He's got a 256 gigabyte SSD, a 3 terabyte hard drive, just in case he needs it for his games.
Wow.
And it's a beautiful machine, and it was quite fun. So I was ill the night before, very ill. Had this bug. And it's the worst thing is when you're coming back on the train and you're feeling rough. Like everyone seems to be knocked out by this bug recently. Yeah. And I felt so guilty. So, because I was meant to have done it the week before, but I didn't. So there I am, ill, putting a CPU into a motherboard again. And I'm like, it's probably the best of ill because I was very distracted because I hate putting CPUs in. I hate it. But they're so easy now. They've really made it so easy to build computers on your own now. But it's so much fun building a computer. And obviously then you load up and you're like, oh, this is an amazing system. But then you load up Windows 7 on it. And I've got a disk that's probably patched till last year. And it's got 190 updates. And it takes an hour and a half to download all the install of the updates. And you're just like, this is why I don't use a Windows box anymore.
Oh, man. Yeah.
But that's the only way of gaming truly on it. But it does make you think, wow, we get rinsed for Mac. But it's so beautiful. And then I'm like, I don't care. It's like, I don't care if it's not as powerful. It's beautiful, though. And I think I'm going to convince my dad to get a MacBook Air. So we will see.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, my dad's just got one as well. He went for the MacBook Pro, similar to what you've got. So
I was just going to say, like, so how is it living at home now? Are you now like the computer guy living at home? Like your parents are asking you questions about all computer stuff now, or you?
I've always been that guy, regardless of whether I lived here or not. I just get phone calls.
It's not working.
I am the IT guy.
Why have you broken the internet?
And the thing is, like, I'm not a bad programmer, but when it comes to other things, like, I'm useless. Like, especially anything like hardware. So I get
you're a soft
everything.
Guy. You're not a hard guy. You don't want to be a hard guy. You're a nice soft guy like me. You know.
Oh, thank you. That's so wrong. But yeah. No, it's cool. It's all fine, and obviously we're excited about getting into the new place. But
and when's that going to happen then? Yeah. Is there a date on that?
Hoping end of February.
Oh, so you've still got you got Christmas coming up, which is lovely. You know, Christmas Day tomorrow. Whoa, it's crazy.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it. So, man, I think we have come up to the hour mark.
We have actually come up to the hour, and your Skype connection's been perfect on your phone, so we could be doing this. Skype. Yeah, it's been perfect. Haven't had any problems at all.
This is the way forward.
Way forward. It's using phones. I think phones are the way forward.
Well.
Oh dear. Anyway, so it's been great talking to you, man. And listeners, if I don't know if this is coming out before New Year or today or Christmas Day or whenever we're going to do it, because we're trying to kind of get a couple of podcasts done. I really want to do a quiz one. I think a New Year's quiz.
That'd be good.
I think we should all get in. Maybe I don't know whether we all get. I don't know what your plans are for New Year's and stuff. But I'm sure it's a bit hectic. So we will see. We will see what we can do.
We will see. Yeah,
even if it's over Skype, it'll be a good laugh. And great talking to you, Mickey.
Yeah, and you, man. And thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.